Welcome back to Full-Time Yoga Teacher Podcast. My name is Reika and I am your host. I hope you're having a beautiful day as you're listening to this podcast. Full-Time Yoga Teacher Podcast was started about a year ago because I wanted to interview other full-time yoga teachers out there in the world to find out about and learn from their journey of how they became a full-time yoga teachers and the challenges that they have overcome to be a full-time yoga teacher, as well as all the unique ways and paths yoga teachers have paved for themselves to be a full-time yoga teacher. Because as you may already know, being a full-time yoga teacher is not easy, and also there's not really a path that is laid out for us. So everybody kind of finds their own unique way, and that's what I'm interested in, is different ways that people create their career doing what they love, which is to share yoga. And also finding like a through line and almost common thread from everybody that I get to interview. Although everyone's journey is so different, I can also hear and learn some of the through line or common themes throughout everyone's journey, and that's really fun for me to listen to and I guess pay attention to those patterns that exist. So before I get started, I want to share that I went on a solo camping trip this weekend. I had a whole day Friday off this week, which is kind of rare for me. Like even on the days that I don't teach a yoga class, I usually have a meeting or something that I have to do that day. The Friday happened to be completely free. So when I realized that I had one free full day, I decided to block that day off and decided to go on this solo camping trip. So Thursday night, I finished work at 6 p.m. and I got a campsite in Big Bear, California for one night. So after I finished work at 6 p.m., I drove all the way to Big Bear. So around 9 p.m., I made it to my campsite. I just put up a tent and slept in my tent that night. And next morning, I woke up, packed everything up, had breakfast, and went to a trail nearby. Some of you may know that I've been running a lot lately. I ran my first marathon this year, 2025, in February. And since then, I've been really getting into trail running. So trail running has been really bringing me joy these days. So I am currently training for my first ultra marathon. So ultra marathon is anything beyond marathon distance, which is 26.2 miles. And I want to run trail ultra marathon. So I have race in mind in September that I'm training for my first 50-kilometer race, and 50 kilometer is about 32 miles, I believe. So it's slightly over a full marathon distance, which is 26.2. It counts as a ultra marathon. So I'm training for a trail ultra marathon, which usually have a lot of elevation, which means I'm going to be running in the mountains. Anyway, all that to say, I've been running a lot, and all that to say, this weekend I had an 18-mile run scheduled for my training. And I wanted to take this opportunity to go out to a mountain that I usually don't go to and do my 18-mile long run in the Mount of Big Bear. So it was really fun. I found a Pacific Crest Trail nearby. So I just kind of ran 9 miles out and ran back 9 more miles and made that into my 18-mile long runs for the week. And it was really fun. Afterwards, I got to jump in the lake and kind of wash myself from that long run. And then I drove home, and I was home by 6 p.m. the Friday night. So that was a really fun solo camping trip and also a fun running adventure I did. And it made me think about why I don't do this more often. It's not too far. It's super doable. And even if I have one full day off, I can still make this kind of trip happen. Obviously, ideally, it would be nice if I had 2 full days off so I can actually spend another night and camp out. But it was really fun. So if you're listening to this and you've been wanting to go on a solo mini adventure or solo camping trip, I'm going to highly encourage you to do that, especially before summer's over. Okay, enough about me. I do have one more announcement to make before we get started on this week's podcast. So the announcement is that mentorship program for yoga teachers application is now open for Module 3. So I have this group mentorship program for yoga teachers that I run throughout the year, but it is separated into 3 modules of 4 months each. So I open up application for new teachers to join the group 3 times a year. So don't miss this chance. The new module will start in September, and this is a group mentorship program, and I like to do it in groups for a reason, because I think we can learn in community, and by providing community of like-minded yoga teachers who's there to support one another and encourage one another and celebrate the wins for one another, it's such a special thing. And that's, I think, how we can grow and how we can build networks. And that's how we can really make a difference, not only to ourselves, but yoga community as a whole. So what's included in the mentorship program? Like I say, it's 4 months, September through December. Once a month, we meet online on Zoom for philosophy discussions and Q&A sessions. Once a month online, we meet for pranayama and meditation class. And we also have practicum, which is practice teaching session that we do online. We give each other feedback after practice teaching session. We also have a special topic workshop every month. These workshops sometimes it's taught by me, but many times it's taught by guest teachers. And for Module 3, I have very, very exciting guest teachers coming to teach a special topic workshop. First workshop is going to be taught by Karen. Karen is a repeated guest on this podcast, and she will teach a workshop on sequencing. And sequencing is a topic that a lot of yoga teachers want to learn more about and also want to deepen their knowledge, because in 200-hour teacher training, I don't think we learn enough about sequencing. So this workshop, Karen is going to go deeper into how to teach a very intelligent sequencing for vinyasa class. And the second guest is AJ. AJ will be back teaching another workshop called Yoga Meets Physical Therapy, and this time AJ is gonna teach us about hypermobility. And hypermobility is very, very common in the yoga world, and I think it's very important for us yoga teachers to know more about hypermobility so that we can be the best teacher we can be for your students who might have hypermobility. Another workshop will be taught by me called Business of Yoga. I love this topic, not because I'm an expert in business, but because I like to really share what I know. I'm not a business coach. I'm not a business teacher. Like, I am a yoga teacher at heart. I like to teach yoga to students, but I have learned a lot along the way of me being a full-time yoga teacher for almost 10 years. So I really like to share what I learned. And also, I talk to a lot of full-time yoga teachers on this podcast, so I can share also about what people are doing out there in the yoga world, what is working for some people, what is not working for some people, what are some strategies that other teachers or myself have put in place that has really helped the needle move in the business of yoga. So that is happening 1 month. And the last guest teacher is Thomas. And Thomas is a physical therapist here in Long Beach. And he is going to talk about injury prevention in yoga. So those are the guest teachers lined up. So every month we're going to have a special topic workshop taught by my guest teachers or myself. And on top of all of that, you can sign up for one-on-one session with me during those 4 months. So you can sign up to do one-on-one with me to discuss your specific questions, your specific challenges that you're going through, or your specific goals that you want to accomplish. So this one-on-one time is just me and you talking about what you want to talk about. And lastly, everybody in my mentorship program receives free membership to my online yoga studio, so you can come take my yoga classes anytime. I teach Zoom classes, as well as there's hundreds of videos in my on-demand library. And I forgot to mention, there are recordings from our previous workshop done on my mentorship program that's also in the library that you can access. So you're going to get a lot in this mentorship program. You can join via Zoom and live stream if you don't live in Long Beach. And if you do live in Long Beach, we do meet in person for guest teachers workshop most of the time, but rest of the meetings are online on Zoom. So you can join from anywhere, any time zones. I also record all the meetings, so you can watch the recordings later if you happen to miss our live meeting. And all of this is only $45 a month if you commit to join for 4 months. I do have a monthly options to join as well, but it's most cost effective if you join for the whole 4 month. So that is it. If you have any questions, let me know. I do have application for anybody who wants to join the program because I want to make sure that you are the right fit for the mentorship program and you are willing to commit your time and attention to this program. If you want to join this amazing group and community of yoga teachers, I invite you to fill out the application so that you can join for next module starting in September. Okay, I think that is it. I guess one more announcement is that Karen, who is going to be my guest teacher for the next module, the mentorship, as well as Karen, who has been a repeated guest on my podcast. Karen and I are hosting Women's Hiking and Yoga Retreat in Zion, May of 2026. The details are not solidified yet, but I am opening up a list of people who want to be notified first when we do open up registration, which will be soon, less than a month away. So if you want to be on that list, there's a link on the show notes for you to put your name on that list. So you'll be the first one to know when we open up registration. So you'll have the first dibs, I guess, to sign up for the room that you want to sign up for before we open up the registrations to rest of the world and the communities and newsletters and email lists that we have. So I'll put the link to put your name and email addresses if you're interested in joining this retreat. Otherwise, link to the application for my mentorship is also going to be on the show notes. All right, let's get started on this week's interview. So I interviewed Sarah for this week's podcast episode. If you remember Sarah from episode 36, it was titled From Miami to Peru, Sarah's Journey of Finding Authenticity as a Yoga Teacher. Sarah and I worked together to lead a yoga teacher training, 200-hour yoga teacher training in Peru, Moyobamba, Peru last year when I was living there for 4 months teaching teacher trainings. We were co-teaching the teacher training together and we became really good friends. So I've been following her journey ever since, and she is now living in Lima, Peru, which is a capital city of Peru, and she's teaching yoga, she's leading continuing education trainings and workshops, and she's also leading retreats. So this conversation is for us to kind of catch up on what her teaching life has been since last year we spoke, but also what it's like to teach yoga in a whole another country, a whole another language, and a whole another yoga culture and community that exists there. So this is kind of reflection on how is it to teach yoga in Lima? How is it different than teaching yoga in the United States? And how has her teaching career and business evolved since last time we spoke? So I think this conversation will be interesting for anybody who's interested in teaching yoga in another country, or how it might be like to teach yoga in a country that English is not the dominant language. So I hope you'll enjoy this conversation we had, and I really had a great time speaking to her and catching up with her and celebrate all the amazing things she has done and she has planned to do in the future. So I hope you enjoy this conversation that I had with Sarah, and I will speak to you on the other side. Welcome back to Full-Time Yoga Teacher Podcast. Sarah was on this podcast, I think almost exactly about a year ago when we both lived and worked in Peru, Moyobamba, Peru. We were teaching teacher trainings together. And I wanted to bring Sarah back because she is now teaching yoga in Lima, the capital of Peru. So she has stayed in Peru and now she lives there. So I want to have her back on and kind of catch us up on how your life has been since last time we spoke, as well as what it's like to teach yoga in another country. So first of all, how are you doing? And tell the listener, where are you joining us from? Thank you so much for inviting me back. I was so excited when you asked me if I wanted to come back on. Of course. Yeah, I was so excited because my journey has shifted so much, and it's crazy that it's been almost exactly 1 year since we were together in the jungle. But yeah, now I'm in Lima. So it's like the big city. It's winter right now. It's really cold. I'm in the southern hemisphere. So even though it's August, it's winter. So big city winter, a lot different than jungle, northern Peru.
How cold does it get in Lima?
I guess right now it's probably like in the 30s Fahrenheit.
Okay. So it's a lot colder than what you're used to when you used to live in Miami.
Yes, and I went from like Miami, Costa Rica jungle to here, and I've gotten the flu over the past year like 5 times probably. It's crazy.
Oh no.
My body is not adapting well.
So maybe fill me in and the listeners in. Last time we spoke, we were in Moyobamba. You were it was your last teacher training that you were teaching there at that moment. And you were moving to like Cusco area
Yes,
for
yes,
another job. But I know a lot has happened since then. So kind of fill us in on what has happened
yes.
in between and what are you doing in Lima now?
Yes, yeah, it's been crazy. So I left Moyobamba and I started my job at a retreat center outside of Cusco in the Sacred Valley, which was amazing. I love the Sacred Valley so much. And the vibe there, what everyone says is true. It really is magical. And I worked at a retreat center there for about 4 months. And then some things happened with the owner of the retreat center where it just kind of got uncomfortable living there with the owner. And so, at the exact same time that that happened, our school where we taught YTTs emailed me and said, "Hey, we had a teacher drop out last minute from teaching YTTs. We know you're still in Peru. Would you be interested?" And it was at the exact same time that it was starting to get weird at this other retreat center. And so I thought about it and I really took a lot of time to think about it. And I was like, I think this is divine timing. I need to go teach more YTTs in the jungle. So it was about a 2 month period in between. And I had started dating someone that lived in Lima. So I told him about my trouble that I was having. And he was like, why don't you come stay here in Lima for 2 months and then go teach for another 4 months in the jungle? So I came to Lima for 2 months in between the jungle, and I had a studio reach out to me on Instagram about hosting a like a workshop. And so I ended up hosting a 20-hour continuing education workshop. So that was super fun. And I was surprised by that because I taught it in English and it was all people from Lima. All of my students were from Lima. One was from Colombia, I think, but the rest were from Lima. And so I did that, a little 20-hour continuing education. And then I went back to Moyobamba and taught 4 more teacher trainings. So now I've taught on 10 teacher trainings. So that was a big finale of finishing those teacher trainings. And then I moved back to Lima, and the same studio that I taught my continuing education workshop with, I now teach full time there and at another studio in another neighborhood. And I have another 20-hour continuing education workshop coming up starting in October.
Nice.
Yes.
When you first moved to the Sacred Valley for working for a retreat center, that was a position you found through yoga trade, right?
Yes. Yes. That was through yoga trade.
Because I have a lot of teachers who's interested in teaching abroad, teaching internationally. So I always refer people to Yoga Trade. It's a great website. It looks for different yoga teaching jobs all over the world. But I'm so curious about this When you came to Lima, you didn't reach out to studios, they kind of found you? How did that happen?
Yeah, exactly. So what I did was I went and practiced at different studios and I always make sure I say hi, I always say thank you to the teacher after. I always, introduce myself to the front desk person, to the teacher. And so I think that I have a memorable presence and I have a kind of memorable practice. I have my very own style, like my own practice. And so usually I kind of stand out in the class. And so both studios that I work at actually reached out to me on Instagram and asked me, "Hey, would you be interested in teaching classes with us?"
That's amazing. And I think that's
Yeah.
a good tip for anybody listening. Talk to the teachers, talk to the front desk, talk to the owners of the places that you would be interested in working at.
You never know where the connections are going to come from. Like, I did not think that I had the possibility of teaching in Lima. And then they reached out to me, and I was like, sure.
And is the classes you were initially taking before you start teaching there, were they in Spanish or English?
Yes, yeah. So I was only taking classes in Spanish.
Uh,
And actually, so that was one of my fears was they won't let me teach in English and I don't know enough Spanish to teach in Spanish. So I just asked, I'm like, hey, are you okay with me teaching in English? And I teach in areas that are very touristic, but also most people in Lima know English. A lot of Limeños know English.
mhm,
And so they were like, yeah, absolutely, you can teach in English. So I teach fully in English.
mhm.
And I'm actually the only class in English in all of Lima. So that's pretty cool.
Which makes it like a specialized class that like people will reach come to you if they're looking for English class. So that's kind
Yes.
of cool that you're the only one offering it in English.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. If you're ever visiting Lima and you want to take a yoga class in English, my name is Sarah Taylor and I teach in English.
Yes, and I'll definitely link the studios that you're working at. So I'm curious about this continuing education training curriculum that you made. Um, well, I guess maybe for a selfish reason, I want to know what was the process like through Yoga Alliance to become like continuing education provider?
So you actually don't, it's not as rigorous as you would hope. I think it should be more rigorous, but it's okay. So, you only have to be a 200-hour ERYT. You don't have to be 500-hour ERYT. And then you just apply to become a continuing education provider. So it's 40 extra dollars a year. So you pay your regular dues, which are like 60 or $70. And then you pay on top of that $40 a year to become a continuing education provider. So I pay that and I'm a continuing education provider. I don't have to send in my materials. So I made before I applied, I made my whole manual, my whole handbook, everything. Didn't have to send in any material, just had to pay the fee. And then I'm a continuing education provider. But so the way that it works is so whatever I made my manual, I did my course. So I go onto their website and I put in the dates that I'll be doing my continuing education workshop or classes. And then I put in what it's for because it has to fit under one of the 4 categories of continuing education.
Mhm.
And so I go and I do that. And then after it's complete, I put in the emails of everyone that has completed their 20 hours or however many hours you do. And so they're saying email that they use to register with Yoga Alliance. So I put in their email, I put that they've completed it, and then it automatically goes on to their Yoga Alliance profile.
Interesting. Thank you for sharing that because I've always been curious about that.
Yeah, of
And
course.
do you think it helped that you had that on your, I don't know, if the work training description that you are going to get 20 hours of continuing education hour for, does that
Well,
stand in Lima, like in Peru?
I don't know about in Lima necessarily, but in the world in general, in the Yoga Alliance world, as to stay registered as a Yoga Alliance teacher every 3 years, you have to do 50 hours of continuing education. And 20 of those hours have to be classroom work. So it helps for that because teachers literally have to have continuing education. So then not only is it a workshop that they get to do for fun and learn something new, but it's also part of their requirement to stay a Yoga Alliance approved teacher.
Yeah, yeah. And I think you told me that even your upcoming retreat, your participants can get.
I have a retreat coming up, and if you are a yoga teacher, then so this retreat is different than my other retreat. My other retreat was a 50-hour continuing education. This retreat, I'll just offer 10 hours of continuing education just for the work that they do while they're there. So maybe I'll have them assist during a workshop or during a class or something. And then also obviously like the workshops that we'll do while they're there, it'll add up to more than 10 hours, I'm sure, of continuing education.
Yeah, which I think is cool because I'm always interested in learning. I know some people want to come to yoga retreat to like relax and rest, but I always like to choose a retreat where I can actually learn something. It's more workshop style and really good classes that I'm continuing to educate myself in. So I think that's cool that you can offer that.
Yes. No, me too. Because if I'm going to spend money, I want to learn something, not just have a vacation. I want to also leave with like some kind of extra knowledge.
Yeah. So you taught in Lima for a couple months before you went back to Moyobamba to teach for more teacher training. So were you still working at studios in Lima while you're doing your teacher training, or did you kind of pause that and went to dedicate for 4 months?
So I work at 2 studios right now in Lima. And so one studio I just did my 20-hour continuing education, and that's all I did. And then the other studio I would just kind of do drop-in classes. So like, hey, special class this Saturday, Sarah is gonna teach whatever 9:30 a.m. And so at that studio, when I would go to the jungle, I would be gone for 2 weeks and then come back to Lima for 2 weeks. And then at that studio, I would teach for the 2 weeks while I was here. I would teach 1 or 2 classes a week while I was here. And so that kind of helped keep the community together and helped kind of keep me like my connection with my students a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. And okay, so you've taught 4 month or four more teacher training in Moyobamba, and you came back to Lima after that. So how has your life been as being a teacher in Lima? Like now that you live there full time, and I'm curious, like what is it like to be a full time teacher in Lima compared to what your experience was being a full time teacher in the United States?
Right. So, yeah, I was a full-time teacher for a year and then I managed a studio and then taught teacher trainings and retreats. And so I left that like full-time teacher grind, that like hustle, of working in the city and teaching full-time. And I thought I was done with that part of my life. I thought, now I'll just teach trainings and retreats. If only life were that easy, right? It's not. So, yeah, so now I'm back in the city teaching full time, and it is different because I've learned more to balance my time. In the beginning, when I was teaching full time, I was teaching 25 classes a week, and it was just like insane. But now I'm only teaching 4 classes a week right now. It was 6 classes a week and I left 2. So now it's only 4 classes a week. And then I do my continuing education workshop. Right now it's twice a year. And then plus retreats whenever they come up.
Yeah. And is there full-time teachers in Lima? Are there like other teachers that can actually support themselves with just teaching a bunch of classes? Is that a thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I would say that the pay base So they don't really pay per student, or anywhere that I've come across, they don't pay per student. They pay a flat fee. So no matter how many people come, you get paid the same. There's no per head. I would say like comparable to like how much money translates to or whatever in the United States. I think that you get paid about the same
Okay.
in Lima. Lima is obviously like one of the more expensive cities because it is like the bigger city. But a class you get paid maybe 13 USD or 14 USD flat rate, which compared to the cost of living here to the cost of living in the United States, I would say that translates to 30 to $35, which is sadly like, the kind of around what people make when they make a standard
Yeah.
set price. And so I would say it's kind of even. But yeah, I know a lot of teachers that are full-time teachers here, but they teach like crazy. I mean, well, like you, they teach like, yeah, 20 something classes a week. I'm like, you're insane.
Yeah. So there are enough studios and classes out there in the city of Lima for people to be able to teach. Because, if you live in a small town, I feel like maybe there just aren't enough classes for teachers to be a full time. But in Lima, there are. Is it?
Yeah, so there are surprisingly a lot of studios. But it's weird because they don't really market the same way as they do in the US. So there's no class pass and there's no mind body. So there's no like one app that you can go to see all the yoga classes in my area.
Yeah.
It's more like they post on Instagram their
Yeah.
schedule, or you just have to know like, oh, this is a yoga studio. Like,
Yeah.
because when you just Google yoga studios, not a lot really comes up, only one or two come up, when in reality there are a ton of studios.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's weird.
That brings me to my next question of what do you find is a difference in terms of like studio culture, maybe like style of yoga that's popular, or like what
Yeah.
kind of student base and yoga community are out there? Like what are some differences or similarities that you have found since you've been part of this yoga community in Lima?
Yeah. So I think that, so just like how different cities in the US have different styles, right? Like if you practice in Miami, it's a different style than LA or New York or whatever, Mexico City. I don't like, every city has a different style.
Yeah.
So Lima has its own style, and Lima style, I would say, is more soft and more slower paced. It's more like hatha based. And it's because most people, because yoga hasn't been around that long in Lima. There's, one studio that's been open 18 years, and that's the oldest yoga studio in Lima. And so it hasn't been around for a super long time in Lima. And so most people who are teachers here have done their teacher training with one specific person. And so they all kind of teach like this one specific person. So the style is very like assimilated. Everything's pretty similar, and it's very hatha, very like slow. And not everything, just the majority. You can always find like, there's this one teacher who I really love who's super creative and like more dynamic. But other than that, most places are hatha, yin, this more slow style.
And has people been really enjoying your style of teaching? Because I'm sure you teach differently than what's typical in Lima.
It took a while, and still I'm building up my client base and my community, because it did take a while for people, because people would just come, they just named my class on the schedule like vinyasa. And so people would come, and then I teach a very strong dynamic vinyasa, and people would come and be like, "What is this?" You know, like some people would like hate it. Other people would be like, "Wow, like I've never tried some of these poses before. Like this is so fun," you know. And those are the people that keep coming back. And I have a group of really great regular students. And so that's so rewarding and nice to see and see their progress already and see them keep coming back week after week.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of people do come and are like really surprised. Like, I didn't think I was going to sweat or something like that after class, where, you know, there's no other way to, you know, vinyasa is so broad. So there's nothing else I can say besides vinyasa.
Is there is hot yoga a thing in Lima? Is that popular or is there no hot yoga?
Yeah, it's not super popular. I think there's like one or two hot yoga like classes. It's not even that it's a hot yoga studio. It's just that it's like a studio that offers hot yoga.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And
they
it's not
have the heaters, but they only turn them on for certain times. Yeah.
okay. I'm curious, like, is yoga popular in Lima in terms of like, like it blew up at certain time in LA. I'm sure
Mhm.
Miami too. Like, how popular is yoga in, Lima community and the culture?
Yeah, everyone knows what it is. And definitely, like, you know, we had International Yoga Day and we had an event and we had, you know, like hundreds of people show up, so that was really cool. But it's definitely not as popular as it is in the United States. And I think maybe in 5 years, 10 years, it will be. I think we're on our way there. It's just slowly starting to build up. And unfortunately, yoga can be like inaccessible, you know, because you have to pay to have a membership to a studio for a lot of things. And a lot of people that live here just don't have that luxury to pay to have a membership to a studio.
Yeah, yeah. But that's kind of what you said about maybe in 5 years it'll start growing more popularity. And
Mhm.
I don't know how much longer you're planning to stay there, maybe for a while, but isn't it kind of cool to think about how you could be part of that, like,
Yes.
land of yoga in Lima?
Yes, absolutely. Like, it's funny because I can already see, like, since I did my 20-hour continuing education, I can already see, like, some of my students
Mhm.
teach, like, some of my style, or people like the other day I had a student be like, I was talking to my friend, like my coworker, and she said she went to one of your classes at a different studio, and like how she was talking about how much she loved your class. And so it is cool to see already that there is like these little seeds that are
Yeah.
starting to be planted, that hopefully I can, you know, be a part of it.
I've been asking this question a lot on my podcast with different guests, but what I'm noticing in LA, which is different than New York or Miami, but what I'm noticing is that yoga is like popularity of yoga, I think is slightly on a decline here. Now there's more, I feel like there's huge popularity in like Pilates and fitness and hot Pilates, maybe even like weightlifting.
Mhm.
So what I'm noticing here is that less yoga studio who just offer yoga is disappearing. And almost in my eyes, it looks like most places have to offer more of a fitness oriented classes in the schedule to even survive in the market. So there are just
Yeah.
less yoga studio that just is a yoga studio. They'll usually most places have yoga and Pilates and HIIT class and weightlifting or dumbbells. So, is there any trend you're seeing in Lima that is
Yes, yeah,
like,
absolutely. There's nowhere that offers only yoga. Everywhere offers also Pilates or yoga fit or whatever you want to call it, you know? But yeah, everywhere offers Pilates. And like, there's one studio that I work at that I'm the only yoga teacher there, and everything else is Pilates. And it's like, you know, they're just like the Pilates classes just fill up a lot more than the yoga classes do. And yeah, I don't know if it's just because it's trendy right now on social media, like Pilates, you know, whereas like it used to be like yoga was trendy and now Pilates is trendy. I don't know if that's what it is.
yeah,
Surely there will always be a circle back around to yoga, I think, because yoga, you know, is something that has roots, that has more of a history than something like, oh, Pilates or like Tracy Anderson or like some kind of like trendy fitness method, you know?
yeah, interesting. It is also the trend is similar in Lima as well.
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
You said that there's most people are, it seems like they're all taught by same teacher and same teacher training. So does that mean there just aren't that many teacher trainings, yoga teacher trainings being offered in Lima? It's just like one person, one.
Right, exactly. And I think since yoga is not that popular here, maybe first of all, there aren't a lot of people qualified to teach 200-hour trainings. And then secondly, there's like one main person who has like the dominance on 200 hours.
Mhm.
And he's just the one who offers it the most. And so he teaches, you know, almost every single teacher in Lima has done his 200-hour.
Mm.
So they all know the same things, they all know the same sequences, they all teach in the
Yeah.
same way, use the same language. Whereas I think it's really beneficial to learn different cues, learn different styles, and see which one fits you, not only have one style and one that everyone, you know, sticks to, because then how do you ever learn something new? How do you ever grow if you're only learning one style?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's probably a great market for you in terms of offering this continuing education. Because if everybody's getting 200 from one school, one teacher, I'm sure many teachers are kind of like hungry to learn different skill sets or different style. Or, you know, you coming from United States and bringing in maybe a different knowledge or experiences that may be rare to find in Lima. So even like 300-hour or just continuing education trainings and workshop, I feel like you probably offer a lot of that and people would be interested in.
Well, and my continuing education is like advanced asana
Right.
or yeah, like advanced asana. And so what I noticed last year when I taught it was, yeah, most people are like, I really want to offer my students these advanced variations, but I don't know how to teach them. I don't know how to do them. So that's why I signed up for this course, is because I want to be able to teach my students
Mhm.
these the next option, the next level.
I remember you telling me when last year when we were working together that you want to offer advanced asana training. So like you're making that into reality. And I'm sure more you do it, like you know, curriculum's gonna keep refining it and you're just gonna get better and better at it. So how amazing that you are actually making that into reality.
Yes, yes, I'm super excited. And you know, and not to say anything bad about the person that teaches 200 hours here. It's just the reality is that there's mainly only one person that does it.
Mm. Do you ever want to
You know.
teach 200-hour in Lima?
I think I would have to do it in Spanish.
Mhm.
So I need to learn some more yoga terms in Spanish before I step into that avenue. But I would love to. I love teaching 200 hours. I think that that is one of my favorite ways of teaching yoga, is teaching on 200 hours. So I would love to teach more 200-hour trainings.
And how I know your Spanish, I remember your Spanish was way better than mine. And from what I'm hearing on Instagram, I don't know if it's true, but I feel like you are maybe teaching in English, but you're still bringing in a lot of little Spanish here and there in your classes. So are you kind of teaching slightly mixed Spanish and English? And I'm sure your Spanish has improved a lot since you've been there for a while.
Well, it's funny because I'll speak with my students in Spanish because I would say 90% of my students are Spanish. I like speak Spanish or limeños, and maybe 10% are foreigners. So before class starts, we'll be speaking in Spanish. Hola, ¿cómo estás? Ah, qué gusto verte. Blah, blah. And then I'll say, let's begin. And then I'll switch to English, and then everything is in English from then on.
Yeah.
But before that, and then as soon as class ends, I'll be like, thank you so much. And then, I'll be like, "Qué calor, no, mira." Like, then we'll start speaking in Spanish again. So,
Yeah, yeah. So I feel like you probably can teach it in Spanish, I would imagine, or just like bring it in a little bit.
that's what people say, but I don't feel I need to like take lessons on just like yoga in Spanish, just the specific yoga terms in Spanish. But taking classes in Spanish obviously helps.
That's true. Yeah.
Which I do take about 5 classes a week in Spanish.
Nice. I interviewed a yoga teacher who owns a yoga school in Colombia, in Medellin. I think he started like a online course, I think, for how to teach yoga in Spanish. So like English speakers, but it's a course not to become a yoga teacher, but somebody who's already a yoga teacher who want to learn how to teach it in Spanish. So I think there's stuff like that out there.
On Yoga Trade?
Yes, that guy.
Yeah, I've seen that on Yoga Trade, yeah.
Yeah, I think
interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it was an interesting conversation we had because I always see his promotion on Yoga Trade, how he does teacher training there in Spanish and English. But I guess during the pandemic, he made that course to be able to make money.
Okay,
And then he couldn't have that many people travel to Colombia to do teacher training. So he made an online course on like how to teach yoga in Spanish course.
Cool. Okay, I will look into that then. Yeah, because I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. So another question I have is I know that you said, I remember this story. So if anybody haven't listened to Sarah's previous podcast interview, I highly encourage you to go listen to that one because we talked about burnout and how teaching so many yoga classes can lead to a burnout. And I know you said earlier in this conversation, you have made some shifts so you don't go back to that same routines of teaching so many classes and just exhausting yourself. And it seems like you have found like a nice sweet spot where you're not teaching too much, but you're teaching enough that really fills you up. And how's that mindset of transitioning from not feeling like you have to teach so many classes and kind of finding the right amount for you there in Lima?
Yeah. For me, it's been about finding different revenues of income stream. So doing my continuing education, that's where I make a big chunk of my money. Doing a retreat, that's where I make a big chunk of my money. And then making those big chunks of money last throughout the periods of time where I am only teaching 4 classes a week. Because even 6 classes a week for me felt like too many. I didn't want to wake up and teach in the mornings, for those 6 classes a week. And so that's why I let 2 go because it was far from my house. I had to take a taxi. I had to pay to take a taxi there. I didn't want to wake up to do it. And so I took those out of my life and I felt guilty about taking them out. And it was a hard decision. And I was like, it's only 6, Sarah. Like, it's not that many. But then I was like, you know what? Who cares? Like, you teach yoga because you love yoga. So I let go of that guilt and I went back to 4 classes and then just, taking that leap of faith of, okay, income is going to come from somewhere else. So doing that retreat, and I'll tell you, like, I tried to plan my first retreat and I didn't get enough people. And so I had to cancel my first retreat. And that's the reality. I tried to do it by myself and I just didn't have enough people sign up. I don't think I spent enough time on marketing, and I didn't spend enough time on planning, and so I just didn't have enough people. So I had to cancel it. And luckily I did get my deposit back. So I'm very lucky that I got my deposit back, because most places don't give you your deposit back. But then I planned my second yoga retreat and it sold out. So, it's just kind of trusting yourself and putting yourself out there to have a different income stream. And I know you just had a sold out yoga retreat.
Yes. It wasn't sold out just because they just have so many rooms. So I could have had more, but it was still
But it was because it was a full hotel.
yeah, it was a good amount.
Okay.
But I love what you said about diversifying income stream. Like, I think that comes up a lot in a lot of the interviews that I do. And also, I appreciate you being honest about like how the first one didn't happen because you weren't able to find enough people. I think those are the stuff that maybe not enough yoga teacher talks about, because I'll also say, like, when I first did my yoga retreat, first time ever was before the pandemic. I just finished my 300 hours and I did it with another yoga teacher friend. And it was a local weekend retreat, not too far from LA. And we were able to find 10 people to come to this retreat. So we decided to do it in another one, and also a local one. And then we didn't get enough people to sign up and we have to cancel that retreat. And ever since then, I've been too afraid to do another one because I'm like, what if I don't, what if, nobody signs up? What if I lose my deposit? So it took me a really, really long time to, like, through the pandemic and after the pandemic, to finally feel like okay, I'm going to give it a try again and see what happens. So I think that maybe those are the stories that we don't talk enough about in public. So it's good that we're talking about it now. Sometimes it's risky, like a retreat or even training workshop. Like sometimes you could prepare and maybe even pay money, like a deposit, to invest, and you may not get that return of investment.
Right, exactly.
But what do you think changed second time around that help you sell out and succeed?
I think doing, especially your first one with another teacher, helps a lot, because then you're less scared and you have two pools of students to get people to come. And then you also have some accountability, because when it was just myself on a day, like, I don't feel like promoting it today, then I just wouldn't do it because I have no one holding me accountable, so I just wouldn't do it. But having someone else, okay, on Monday, we're going to do this. On Wednesday, we're going to do the budget. On Friday, we're going to do this. And having that helped keep me accountable. And so that helped me stay on track and helped me, like, celebrate each person that booked. Like, yes, okay, we got another booking, having someone to kind of bounce. Okay, what do you think about this? With this reel? What do you think about, should we promote this one or this one? Having someone to ask questions and to split the cost with, because like you said, like, your deposits can be expensive. And so if you lose your deposit, having someone to split that loss with, or having someone, if your deposit is $1,000, or it can be a lot of money to come up with. So instead of 1,000, it's only 500. So the profit is less, but the risk is also less.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on having accountability. Obviously, like when you partner with another teacher, you get to both pull from your student base, so you're almost like doubling your exposure of how many people might sign up. But the fact, what you said about like having accountability and somebody to like bounce ideas around, or should we do this or this, or let's try this, or celebrate each other's wins, I think that is huge. Even though my most recent retreat was, I didn't have another teacher I led that with, but I had somebody who was helping me organize back end. And that, like, when you said accountability, I think that's what my person helper provided, was accountability. Like, she'll give me deadline. Okay, make sure you do this by this day. You reach out to this person by this day. So like, even though I did all the work, having somebody give me a deadline and having accountability, like we have a meeting in 1 month to discuss like what we accomplished, So I think that
Yes.
can be so helpful. So I completely agree with you on that.
Yes. And you almost have someone to like answer to, like, yeah, okay, I have a meeting in 1 month. I don't want to come with nothing. So let me actually do it, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And another thing you said that really hit home for me is having this diversified income stream so that you don't have to teach 20 classes a week. So if you can have like a bigger chunk that comes in from doing a teacher training or doing a retreat or doing a continuing education workshop, and you have to be smart about how to, I guess, like, spread out those big chunks you get throughout the year. But if you think about it, if you can get bigger chunks, then you don't have to teach that many, like 20 group classes every week of the year. And how I started thinking a little bit more that way most recently with this retreat and the teacher training I led, and how that made me realize, like, if I can make this more of a regular thing, like one teacher training a year, one retreat a year, or maybe two and two, I'm like, I really don't have to teach this many classes, you know? So that's a fun way to start thinking about it for me.
Because that's not where the real money comes from, anyways. Like,
Yeah.
you're never going to become, you're never going to have a lot of money from only teaching studio classes. You're just going to
Yes.
make other people money.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. Yes, it's so true. Like we're working with somebody else, and yeah, we're making other people money for sure. That's so true.
yeah.
Uh, and I think this is my train of thought. I think group classes can be helpful to continue because that's how you get exposed to your
Yes.
new student base or new community. And those people may be the one who's going to eventually come to your teacher training or come to your retreat or come to your workshop. So I think it's important to keep consistent, even small amount of community group classes, but not relying on that as a big chunk of your income and creating other
Exactly.
sources. Yeah.
Exactly. Relying on that as your community, but not relying on that as your income, as your main income. Because I will
Yeah.
say, as a traveling teacher for so long, whereas
Mhm.
when I was in Miami, I had a huge, number of students that I could rely on to come to a retreat. But after being out of Miami for a year, I no
Mhm.
longer had those students, maybe a few, but most of
Mhm.
them had already moved on to new teachers that they see every week. And then they're spending their money on their retreats. And
Mhm.
that's totally understandable. Why would they spend their money on my retreats when they're going to a new teacher?
Mhm.
So, when you don't have a community, when you're just a traveling yoga teacher, you no longer have that base of people to choose from, and your pool gets a lot smaller. And so, it's a lot harder to sell out your retreats and to sell out your trainings and to have people interested when it's just, they don't know you anymore. They don't feel close to you anymore. And that's part of the reason people book your retreat, is because they want to spend time with you.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I'm curious with your upcoming retreat in Colombia. I know it's sold out, but the students who are coming, how did you meet them? Like, were they from the Peru teacher trainings, or were they from your students back in Miami, or a student you met in Costa Rica? Like, what are the different places that those students?
So, yeah, some were from the 200-hour teacher trainings in Peru. None from our years. They were
Mhm.
recent ones,
Mhm.
which I think helps because you're fresh on their mind.
Yeah.
And then I have two students from here, from
Nice.
Peru, and I have a few people from Miami, and then there's one girl from that's just friends with my colleague
Uh-huh.
from New York. So most of them are either most of them are previous or current students of mine.
Yeah. I love that it's coming from such different communities that you've been part of in
Everywhere.
the past. Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool.
And a lot of different countries too, which I'm excited about.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that would be really cool. It'll be such a rich experience, and probably like relationships that, the people who come to retreats can get to really know each other and like
Yes,
connect. So.
yes.
Mhm.
And my plan for the retreat is, hopefully, because it's yoga and diving,
Mhm.
Hopefully, my plan is to do it once a year and do the same retreat every single year, yoga and diving, but in a different place in the world. And so hopefully I'll have the same people come. And then so it's kind of like a little reunion. You make friends, and then once a year you see these same people in a different place in the world and get to share this experience together. So that's my plan.
Yeah, I love that. Love it. So I guess wrapping up this conversation, I'm curious. I think I asked this question to you last time we spoke a year ago, but where you are now today, like where do you see yourself growing, or where do you want to take your yoga teaching career to? Like, what are you seeing in the future that where you would like to like spend more time on or invest your time and effort into? Is there anything that you have in mind?
I would love to I would love to be a bigger part of the Lima yoga community. I would love to spread yoga more in Lima and make it more accessible and make it more of a thing. So I would love to be a bigger part of that. So maybe lead events or do something like that. And I would also love to host more retreats, and then more continuing education, and eventually my own 200-hour teacher training and 300-hour teacher training. But for now, continuing education, I'll stick with that.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm sure, like I said earlier, if you think yoga is gonna keep growing in next 5 years in Lima, I feel like you're in such a great place to be part of that growth and part of that, yeah, like development and like boom of yoga that could happen there.
Yes, yes. I definitely think I'm on the ground floor. Maybe not the ground floor. I'm sure like there are people that have already done a lot of the work for me, but I'm definitely on during the growth period. So I'm very excited about that. Very lucky.
Yeah, that is such an exciting because I feel like I'm in a place where it's like on the downhill, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right now, like you said, I think it will always go through phases. Like, but I think for now, what it feels like is like 90s, early 2000s, like yoga was on the rise here in LA.
Yes, yes, yes.
And
That was the
right now,
time to get
yeah,
in on the train.
exactly. And definitely right now, the train is going downhill right now.
I can feel that. I can feel you on that.
But I trust that it's always changing, and I trust that it'll come back around in maybe slightly different format. Who knows what? But all that to say, like I think it's so exciting to be part of the world where you feel like it's on this mode, like you're there at the right timing to be part of that growth.
Yes, so exciting.
Okay, is there anything else that I didn't ask, or any question I missed, or anything you want to?
No,
Uh,
I think I just want to say if you are thinking about moving to another country, or if you live in another country and you don't speak that language and you teach yoga and you only teach yoga in English, and you think there's no way that these people want yoga classes in English, just ask. There's no harm in asking because you never know. I never thought I could teach a yoga class in Lima, Peru in English. And yet here I am. I'm not in a hotel. I'm not in a tourist destination. I'm in a big city where it's mostly locals. I'm in regular yoga studios and I'm teaching in English. So don't be afraid to ask. Put yourself out there, and you never know because a lot of locals in countries know English. It's the world's language. It's the number one language. So just ask because you never know. Don't let that hold you back.
Yeah, great advice. Because I know, like, briefly talked about yoga trade, and that's how we got the job in Moyobamba teaching 200-hour teacher training, and that's how you found a couple of other teaching position. But what you're doing now in Lima is very different. It's not through yoga trade. You just like
Right.
start going to studio and asked studio owners to see if they can hire you. So the route that you went this time around is a different route than yoga trade, and but I think you're a living example that it can still be done and you can still find jobs that way.
Yes, absolutely. The more traditional route.
Yes, exactly. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. Please share with the listeners how they can find you, how they can reach out to you, how they can get to maybe find out about your upcoming retreat since this one's sold out.
Yes, I am the Miami Yogini on Instagram. I have my website, which is themiamiyogini.com. You can go ahead and sign up for the wait list for next year for yoga and scuba diving, and maybe a retreat before then for a continuing education. Or if you're ever in Lima, Peru, come by for a class in English. We'll have a lot of fun together, I promise.
Sounds good. And definitely I'll link all of that on the show notes. And, I think a lot of people go to Lima because Machu Picchu is like on the bucket list for so many people. So a lot of people end up flying into Lima, staying a couple nights there. So
Yes.
definitely go take Sarah's class if you ever find yourself in Lima. I think that'll be really fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this conversation I had with Sarah. It was really nice to catch up with her, and I'm just so grateful that we got to meet and work together last year in Peru. And it was so nice to hear, how she's been doing. And now she's been teaching in Lima, and she's doing the things she says she wants to do last time we spoke on the podcast, which is so cool, like leading advanced asana continuing education trainings, leading retreats, and I'm just really happy for her. So I hope you got something out of this conversation, and go follow her on Instagram. I'll put all the links to her Instagram website on the show notes so you can go check it out. Otherwise, just a quick reminder, Mentorship for Yoga Teachers program module 3 is opening up. There's a link to the application form that you can apply if you're interested. If you have any questions, you can also reach out to me, as well as a link to put your name and email addresses if you're interested in learning about my upcoming retreat, hiking and yoga retreat, women's retreat in Zion National Park next year. There's a link to put your email addresses and names if you want to be the first one to find out when registrations open. I think that's it for me. I hope you had a great weekend, and I will speak to you next week. Don't forget to like or subscribe or star this podcast. It means a lot if you could share this podcast or episode with somebody you know. And you can always message me and find me on Instagram at Reika Yoga, REIKAYOGA, or message me through my website, www.reikayoga.com. That's it. Have a lovely rest of your day, and speak to you next week.